Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar brought to you by MACF and Florida Makes. I'm your host, Sherry Reeves, along with Christian Davison. Today is May 21st, 2020, and we will start this programming at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Today's topic, live demo, CAMWorks. I would like to introduce today's speaker, Joe Longanusa. A little bit about Joe and Access Manufacturing. Joe graduated from California Southern, completed Rollins College Management Program, 30 plus years in sales management, and 20 of those years in CAD/CAM sales with Access Manufacturing Systems. Access Manufacturing Systems, Inc. is the largest CAMWorks reseller in the world. For more than 20 years, Access has delivered best-in-class manufacturing software and accessories, along with unsurpassed industry expertise to hundreds of Florida manufacturers and thousands of companies across the nation. Access Manufacturing Systems has been a proud member of MACF since 2002. A few housekeeping notes. As a participant, your audio will be in listen-only mode using your phone or computer, whichever is more convenient. Additionally, you will have the opportunity to ask your questions using the question window. This is a live webinar event which will be recorded. A link to the recording will be provided to you within a few days. Now, I would like to turn the presentation over to Joe.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you to the MACF and Florida Makes for having us available for this webinar. We do appreciate it. We also want to thank those that are in attendance and hope all are well. My name is Joe Longanusa. I'm the National Sales Manager for Access Manufacturing Systems. Alongside of me is our Senior Applications Engineer with Access Manufacturing Systems, Dennis Larscheid. A little bit about Dennis real quick, who's actually going to be doing the presentation for you on the CAMWorks. Dennis is a technical college graduate out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. He's got over 10 years of manufacturing experience, both CNC programming and as a senior machinist. And he's been with Access for over 15 years as a certified CAMWorks applications engineer, 2 through 5 axis, mill turn, wire, etc. A little bit of solutions that range from 2.5 axis machining all the way up to full 5 axis with our CAMWorks product, mill turn solutions, as well as wire EDM. We also can program routers, CNC plasma burning tables, etc. What we're going to talk to you about this afternoon is integrating solid modeling into CNC machining. CAMWorks is a gold partner of SolidWorks, has been the longest running CAM gold partner for SolidWorks since its inception over 22 years ago. So what Dennis is going to show you, and I'm getting ready to turn it over to him, he's going to show you integration between solid modeling and machining. He's going to show you associativity of the model with the CAM, and he's also going to show you how quickly you can get toolpath on a part right from within the SolidWorks or solid modeling environment. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dennis, and he's going to show you the good stuff. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Well, welcome, everybody. Like Sherry said, we're going to have questions and answers afterwards, so if you want to just hold those off till then, that would be great. But what I'm going to do is show you, I'm just going to run you through CAMWorks, basically from 2-axis milling all the way up to 5-axis simultaneous milling, mill turn. CAMWorks can pretty much do it all. We can even do wire EDM. So if you look at my screen, I've got SolidWorks 2020 up. You've got your SolidWorks feature tree over here. Added to SolidWorks when I have my CAMWorks add-in active is my CAMWorks tabs. So the way this part was drawn up, so that what I would do to start out is to either open up a part that an engineer drew for me or draw it up myself. But if we look at something like this, for those of you who aren't familiar with SolidWorks, you're basically going to start out with the basic block of the part. You're going to draw up a sketch, tell it how thick it is, and then just either add or subtract from there. So you can see how this SolidWorks feature tree is all built right into this part. And a lot of that is pretty important in CAMWorks because it sees things like that. It sees that this pocket is 1 inch deep. It sees how wide it is, how tall it is. One of the beautiful things about CAMWorks is it reads the solid model. That's what makes it a very powerful CAM system. So I'm going to go right over to my CAM tab, my CAMWorks feature tree. Also integrated right into my upper tabs here are going to be CAMWorks. We have a CAMWorks workflow tab. We have a CAMWorks 2020 tab and even a CAMWorks additive tab. So my first job is now, after getting the model, either drawing it or opening it up, is selecting what type of machine I'm going to be using. So I right-click my machine mill, I edit definition. Here's where I select what mode I'm going to be in CAMWorks, whether it's milling, turning, mill, turn, wire EDM, or even the additive. I'm going to just select the mill. Even though I'm selecting mill, I can now also do full 4 and 5 axis indexing from here, and I can do 4 and 5 axis simultaneous. Next thing I'm going to do is select my tool crib. Now, what I'm showing you is basically a default database, and the nice thing about CAMWorks is the database comes in out of the box ready to use. It's ready to be editable by you or edited by you, but it does come in just like you're seeing it. So there's tool cribs in here, there's basic posts in here, and all of these machines. But as soon as you purchase CAMWorks, start using it, you start teaching it, you know, what tools you have, what machines you're using, and things like that. So I'm going to pick just a basic tool crib, and I'm also going to pick a post processor. If I was going to be doing indexing on this part, I'd come over to my setup tab and tell CAMWorks I'm going to be doing 4 or 5 axis indexing, and then set up the rotary and tilt after that. This one we're just going to do basic 2D stuff. So that's done. Now I'm going to go and manage my stock. So I'm going to edit definition on that. First thing you're going to do is select the type of material you're cutting. There's about 25 in this list, and inside our CAMWorks database, there's well over 1,700 that you can add to this. But that's going to drive your feeds and speeds library. Then you pick the stock type or shape. So there's 4 ways in milling to do that. You're either going to do a bounding box like we see here. It defaults to that. You can grow those numbers X, Y, and Z. You can use a sketch for your stock. Draw it up in SolidWorks, and that's your stock shape. You can do an STL or a whole nother SolidWorks model. Those last 2 are great for second operations, third ops. They're great for castings. That's when I use these 2 quite a bit. In this case, I'm just going to leave it at the bounding box. Now I'm going to do something that's pretty unique to CAMWorks. It's called Extract Machinable Features, or Automatic Feature Recognition. I'm going to click that button, and what it's doing is analyzing the model. It's trying to find as many 2D features as it can. And that's a tool that it really helps you out no matter how complicated your part is. It's going to have some basic 2D pockets and holes. That kind of stuff CAMWorks finds for you automatically. So just by clicking that button, it's found a rectangular pocket here, a group of pockets here. So I can click on each one of these and I can see what the software has found for me automatically. It's also found what we call a curve feature. This is a brand new feature for 2020. It's going to deburr this whole part, every sharp corner on this, with one single toolpath, and it did that for me automatically. It's also finding hole groups, so it sees the diameter, the depth. It even knows that those are through holes, and it's going to see these counterbore holes for me also. The other thing it did when I hit that extract machinable features button was look or analyze the hole part. So it sees that there are features on this side over here also, and it created a whole nother mill part setup for me. And it's going to find the features that it can there. Now this is a great tool to speed your programming up. These 2-axis features, I don't have to manually go in and make them. I don't have to pick these edges and tell it, you know, this is the shape of the pocket, and then go tell it it's an inch deep. These kind of simple 2D features are done for you with the software. I'm going to go ahead and just press this one. I don't need that curved break on that second mill part setup. But from here, if I have more things I want to do, because that automatic feature recognition isn't the end all result. It's not going to be 3 clicks and you're done. You still have to go in and make your own features, but to do that in CAMWorks, it's very straightforward. I'm going to right click this mill part setup, and we're going to add a 2-axis feature. These are my feature types. This is going to be a boss. We're just going to walk around the outside of this part. So I'm going to call it a boss, and I'm going to pick a single edge off the model, and it's going to give me my correct shape. Now I can go to my next tab, which is the end condition, and I'm going to select the top face of that part. 2 very important things that I just did there is I selected off the model to create the shape, and I selected the top face to create my height. What that means is if those were to change in the model, my software is going to see those changes and update the feature for me automatically. I'm going to show you a lot about that a little bit later. But now I can go in and do whatever I want to do. I can pick my strategy for this boss. I can just do a course, or I can do a finish and an edge break. I'm going to leave it at finish. I can come down to my second end condition and just drive this toolpath a little bit deeper past the bottom. So if we zoom in, we can see we're just driving it a little bit deeper. So that's how you add your manual features in CAMWorks. Very straightforward. I'm going to go ahead and do my next tab up here on the top, and that's Generate Operation Plan. What this does is it looks into my database, and it says, all right, we have a pocket. You've chosen rough and finish for a strategy, and it's going to give me a rough mill and a finish mill for that pocket. If I would have chosen rough finish edge break, it would give me 3 tool paths, a rough, a finish, and then another contour to break the edge. But that database is very important in CAMWorks. I'm just going to go ahead and click the next tab, which will then generate these tool paths. And now I can physically click on each one of these and see tool paths. But that's all coming from the database that comes with CAMWorks. That's that editable feature that I was talking about, that you teach this software. As soon as you get it, you start teaching it how you guys do your machining in-house. So comes in a little bit vanilla. From there, you teach it exactly how you do your machining. So if I right click on any one of these tool paths and edit this, excuse me, you're going to see the parameters that are set in CAMWorks. So here's my tool. I bring my pointer off the screen, I see the tool. If I'm on the mill holder tab and bring my pointer off the screen, I'm going to see that. It's all interactive, so it's very visual. If I want to drop that down, my protrusion, you're going to see that it drops it down right on the screen. But every other parameter for this toolpath has been set in CAMWorks. And it's completely editable on the fly, or you can save it in the database and it'll remember it from there on in.
I think that's a key right there, is the ability to be able to save it. So you can take a knowledgeable machinist that's been doing this for years and years and have them work hand in hand with your CNC programmer, and the two of them together can really put together a nice strategy for machining your parts.
Exactly. So at this point, I've got a little bit of work to do. So I can can reorder any of my toolpaths. It's all Windows based, so I can just drag and drop things if I need to. I can edit the toolpath like we were doing before. Or I can come in here and simulate this toolpath. So if I right click on this mill part setup and simulate this toolpath, this is one of 3 ways you can simulate in CAMWorks, and I'll show you each one of them. But this is the prettier one where you see the material being removed and everything like that. It does a real nice job with the simulation, because this is pretty important. We want to make sure we're not having any crashes at this point. If we're going to do something wrong, we want to have it happen on the computer screen, not at the machine. So simulation is a very important portion of this. So I ran through that pretty quickly, but there's a neat little tool inside my simulation. It's called Show Differences. So the colors I'm seeing on the screen now are just related to the toolpath colors in CAMWorks. But if I click on this button here, the Show Difference, I'm going to get a graph in the upper left corner. Green is good. It's cut to the solid model. So what this is doing is it's analyzing my cut toolpath to the solid model. And green is what I'm looking for. Blues, we still have some work to do. We shouldn't really be having any blue, but you can see on those tapped holes, I never simulated them, so they'll be blue. But yellows, oranges, and reds, that means negative. That means I'm cutting into this model. And I'm expecting to see that on every one of these corners because CAMWorks deburred this part for me. So that was something I was expecting to see. I'm going to close out of that. And at any time, I can go ahead and simulate that, make a change, do another simulation. CAMWorks does a really nice job with that. Other things we can do very quickly, if I want to move my origin, I just right-click my mill part setup, and I can, at this point, move this wherever I want to, whether it's a vertice of the stock, top, mid, bottom center of the model. It'll always default to the top. If I want to move it, I just click on an edge, and it'll put it right to that spot. So now that's going to be my new G54. I click OK. CAMWorks is going to tell me there's been a change to my origin, and it's going to regenerate my toolpath. Now everything's coming from that new coordinate system. Now, this is when, you know, the next thing that's going to happen is somebody's going to want to make a change to this model, because I'm just about ready to post this out. If I wanted to, I could right-click, post-process this part. But inevitably, someone's going to make a change to it. So let's take a look and let's make a change to this model, see what happens.
Now, we know this doesn't happen in your world out there if you're listening to this webinar, but we hear from time to time that this can be a very frustrating portion of engineering and manufacturing working together. But we've got a way to kind of simplify that.
So I'm going to go over to my SolidWorks feature tree and make a few changes to this part. So let's go change the size of this pocket. Rebuild that. So we've made that a much bigger pocket. Let's go look at this one. This one will change the thickness of this part. So it's an inch deep now. I'm going to make it a 1/2 inch deep pocket, which will then also make this one deeper. And then maybe we'll make a change on the part that wasn't there before. So if we go into our hole wizard, maybe we'll throw some tapped holes in here. I'm going to put a tap hole on these faces. And I'm not even going to fully define them. We'll just put them on the model. So we haven't made huge changes to this, but we've made some big enough ones. Next time I go to either one of these 2 tabs, it's going to give me a message. It reads that there was a change to the model. And that's a big time saver. So I'm going to click OK, and it's going to analyze the changes I made. It's going to do about 3 things in the background that are very important. Number 1, if I would have changed any of my toolpaths, it's going to remember that. So I reordered these toolpaths. It didn't go back to normal. It kept that and kept all the other changes I may have made. But if I look at this rough pocket now, it sees the larger pocket. If I go to my inner pocket, rectangular pocket, it's only cutting it down to a 1/2 inch. So literally I can right click on this and repost it. And that change really hasn't affected me too much. The other things it's doing, if I go back to my CAMWorks feature tree, it created a whole nother setup saying we're going to need to set this up in the vise like this because now we have 2 features that have been added to the part, and it sees them. It sees them as tapped holes, so it even knows they're 1/4 20 tapped hole. If I right click on that and generate the operation plan, it's going to give me a center drill, and a tap for that 1/4 20 tapped hole. And that's a big plus with CAMWorks. It's all the kind of things that, you know, I've been doing this for 15 years now. You kind of take it for granted, but I'm running inside of a very good CAD system, and I never leave that SolidWorks environment. Anytime I need to draw things or draw my tool path or draw my stock, I'm just right clicking, doing sketches. I'm using the power of SolidWorks as my CAD throughout the whole process. So that's basically 2.5 axis milling on a single part. There are a couple things I did want to touch on real quick. What I would do now is right click and post process, which is a pretty straightforward process. You hit play, and you've got your code ready to be sent out to the machine. CAMWorks comes with Simple Editor, which is a great editing software. It's got backplotting, all color coded. I really enjoy this editor. Another thing that's a great little tool is called Setup Sheets. I can right click on this setup, mill part setup, and generate a setup sheet. There's about 6 or 8 built-in templates for setup sheets. Let's go click on this one. And this is something that you can print out, send out to the setup guy, and he can have a list of tools for his setup sheets. Another thing that's brand new for 2020 is going to be probing. So CAMWorks just added probing cycles to its package of CAM system. If I right click, I can now come in and do a probing operation. I can pick the probe I want to use. And this is going to be an example of how I want to do this. I can probe just Z. Come in here and probe this face. You can pick your location for the probe. You can tell it to now give me a new work coordinate system, G54 or not. So that's a real nice thing that we've just added with the probing. I'm just going to drag that up to the top. So we need to, in mid pocket, we need to measure a pocket size, or maybe even just measure the hole before we start tapping something. Make sure that drill didn't snap off in the hole. We can go in and probe that hole. So that's my 2.5 axis. Now I did want to show you one more thing. I'm going to go ahead and show you. In 2019, they added something called shop floor. So it took me about, I had 3 different things I had to do to get the posted code, to get the setup sheets, and a list of things that the setup guy needs. They created in 19 was something called shop floor. I'm going to click on shop floor, and I'm going to publish this. This is something that is going to be on a computer out at the machine. Computer, a tablet, whatever you need to have out there. This is not going to have CAMWorks. This is not going to be SolidWorks. It's just going to be on the tablet or the computer at the machine. So this is what the setup guy is going to be able to see. He's going to be able to analyze his model, measure anything he needs to on it, He's also going to be able to look at every one of the tool paths, simulate them, step through them, and he'll be able to see exactly what's supposed to be happening when he goes to post-process it or hit the go button on the machine. Another thing that shop floor created was my G-code. So the G-code is all there. It's all in a nice package. Simco editor's got the back plot and everything like we showed before.
This really eliminates the need for a paper trail. So that way we don't have to have the programming department taking paper, or here's a print of what it looks like for you to be able to go and match what I did. This eliminates that. So for all of the lean folks out there, this is a great opportunity for you to have within a CAM system the ability to eliminate paper.
Yep, because all of this could be done out at the machine if he had a seat of SolidWorks and a seat of CAMWorks, but this eliminates that. This is now something you can do with shop floor, just having that out at the machine. The other thing that's in this package is going to be your setup sheets. You're going to have everything you need in this little bundle that by clicking that one button, it created my shop floor file for me. I think that's a really neat thing that they came up with in 2019. All right, so now I'm back into SolidWorks. And now this is just part mode. If I wanted to do still just 2-axis milling, we can do that in assembly mode also. So here's an example of, because it is nice to be able to visually see what you're doing and you know what's set up at the machine. So we've spent a little more time in SolidWorks to create the assembly. But then when we come over to CAMWorks, this would be considered assembly mode. So you tell CAMWorks what the part is, what the fixture is, and now when you simulate, it is going to be able to show you if you're having any crashes onto these vices or this table. Hopefully you're not getting down that far, but this is very important also. And this is also included in a basic seat of CAMWorks. If you were just to get 2D CAMWorks, you can do assembly modes also. So we're just going to slow this down a little bit more and show you again. This is an example of a volume mill tool path that it's doing. CAMWorks says that we started using volume mill about 6 years ago. It's a great high-speed roughing routine. So we can stop that at any time, hit that show differences button to see if you have any issues, and it's going to analyze that model. So here's a good example of, I stopped it in mid rough tool path for that strange shaped pocket, and you can see how that's blue, but we definitely don't see any yellows, oranges, or reds, so that's a good thing. So that's assembly mode, and that could be a flat table like this. This could be a tombstone drawn up with as many parts as you want on it. Doing your 4-axis indexing. Assembly mode is something I use quite a bit, and it is very powerful in CAMWorks. You could draw up your 4th-axis indexer laying down on the table even. I've got quite a few customers doing that too. So that's my 2D milling, part mode, assembly mode.
Now we're going to get into the good stuff.
We look at some 3-axis machining. This is just a part, a little mold part, drawn up in SolidWorks. My first job, just like before, is going in and picking my machine. So I'm going to go to my CAMWorks feature tree, right-click my machine, edit definition, and just select my mill. When I do that, it's going to select the tool crib and a post processor for me. Stock manager, just like before, you can right click and select what type of material you're picking and what size stock you're using. And now I want to start machining this part. So I can hit extract machinable features at any time. That's not going to find this 3-axis more complicated tool path. So I'm going to make that manually. So to do that, I'm going to create a mill part setup. I'm basically telling CAMWorks how it's sitting in the machine. So I'm picking this top face. I'm controlling the green circle and the blue arrow. The blue arrow is the direction of the end mill. Green circle is parallel to the table. That created this mill part setup. From there, before we did a 2-axis feature, this time we're going to do a multi-surface feature. CAMWorks has a very strong 3-axis kernel. We can do any kind of slice patterns, whether it's just a one direction or you want to spiral from a point or radiate from a point. You can even do a flow line where you pick 2 edges or 2 faces and you flow the toolpath between that. That's all encompassed in this pattern project strategy. We can do a constant step over. That's the one I'm going to show you for this one. That one's kind of neat because it takes whatever shape you tell it and morphs the toolpath to that. And then you can also do the Z level. This one is used quite a bit also. This is great for slight tapered walls, straight walls. This will give you a nice clean Z slice on the part. And then all the other stuff down below is full 4 and 5 axis simultaneous. So in this one, I'm going to pick area clearance, constant step over as my strategy. I'm going to select every face on the part and unhighlight it. So without me talking, it should have taken me about 3 seconds to make that feature. And that's the way it'll happen every time you make a 3D feature. I take that feature now and generate it. It gives me 2 tool paths. My area clearance is the rougher. I'm going to generate that tool path.
And I think you'll notice that Dennis didn't have to go in and create the toolpath. CAMWorks is intelligent enough to see exactly what he selected and the strategy he selected, and it created the toolpath for him.
Yep. But still, I can go in and change it. So if I edit this roughing toolpath, it's defaulted to doing a pocket out pattern. You've got lace, which is basically a zigzag. You've got pocket in core, which is going to plunge on the outside, work its way in. You've got adaptive, and you've got volume mill. So volume mill is not just for 2-axis, it's also for the 3D. And notice something with CAMWorks. They put this in about 4 years ago. Anywhere I select, the little picture right here updates every time, every button, anywhere I click on the software. So it's a very useful learning tool for you, that this little picture may not seem like a lot, but it is great. I use it all the time when I'm teaching people. Just click on it and you tell me what that picture is telling you. So they do a really nice job throughout CAMWorks parameters boxes. I think I don't remember what the number was. It was well over 3,000 new pictures they've added throughout the years. But that's my rougher. It's just going to come in and clean out that material. To get it ready for my ball end mill to machine that out. Now there's a lot of functionality in that roughing toolpath and the finishers, but the rougher you can now do rest machining. You can come in and tell it I'm using the biggest diameter tool I can get in there. And now I'm going to copy that toolpath and do rest machining to machine the rest of the cuts. You're going to come in with a longer, smaller tool and do rest machining from work in process, previous tool. You could even do it from an STL file or the current part. So they've got a very strong molding functions from the 3D. Let's look at the constant step over. That's my finished toolpath. So if I generate this right now, I have not, this is the one that morphs to the shape I tell it to. So I haven't told it what shape to morph to. So it's going to have a toolpath that's a rectangle. And it's going to try and cut the whole part. In reality, I just want to cut the light bulb shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to insert a new contain area. And I'm going to click one edge off the model. It's going to give me a preview of what it's going to contain to. At this point, I can offset it larger or smaller. I can tell it where to put that tool on that edge, up to that curve, on that curve, or past it. In this case, I'm going to say put the edge of the center of the tool on the edge itself. And notice one other thing. Anything I do in CAMWorks, when I'm making features, you're going to get a allowable sketches box. These sketches were made in SolidWorks. They are part of what whoever drew this part up used to make this part. So you're always going to have those available to you also. But in this case, I'm happy with my light bulb shape. I'm going to click the green checkbox and regenerate my toolpath. This does two big things. It contains it to that shape, but it also completely changes the shape of the toolpath. So now I can see that it's flowing with this big arc here. It's coming around this corner and coming down here. It's doing a really nice job. That's why I like this toolpath, because the more you can flow with your part, the bigger your steps can be. You can do a straight old slice and have a real tiny step over and have a good finish, but if you can flow with the shape, you'll be able to have a much better end result. So now I can see there is something I don't like. It's going down into that hole. I'm going to do just the same, only different. I'm going to do an avoid this time. And I'm going to avoid that bottom edge. I'm going to tell the software not to go down into that. You have the same options. You can offset it. You can tell it to go on the curve, past it, or up to. One other thing that's kind of neat in the avoids is you can tell it to machine around that avoid or machine right over the top, act like it wasn't there at all. So I'm going to click machine over the top and then regenerate the toolpath. When I was up in Green Bay, actually machining, we did a lot of 3D and didn't use CAMWorks. We used a different CAM system. And the difference between the two, CAMWorks is that it's the most powerful CAM system I've seen in the surfacing side of things. But now you can see it's no longer diving down in that hole. And it's just acting like that hole wasn't there at all. They do a really, really nice job with their 3-axis machining. And here's, I'm going to give you another quick example of the constant step over. I'm just going to copy this toolpath. And just that easy in CAMWorks. I hold my control key, copy the toolpath. Now I'm going to pull it down. And what I'm going to do is get rid of the contains that I had in the avoids. Regenerate that toolpath. Because what happens a lot in surfacing is it's just one small section you want to concentrate on, or there's one section you have to use, a nice small tool, long one to get down into. So what I'll do a lot, even though this feature was created just once, I can make as many tool paths from it as I want. But I can come in here now and I'm just going to do a quick sketch in SolidWorks. Notice I'm doing it right here in SolidWorks. I'm not having to go to the feature tree, or I'm doing it right here in CAMWorks. I'm going to do a quick sketch. And now I'm going to contain using that sketch. So I'm going to right click that toolpath. I'm going to do another contain area. Pick my sketch. Put my tool right on that curve. And now it's going to do two things here again. My whole toolpath is going to morph to that shape. So it's an oval shape. But now it follows that whole surface. And it's not going to gouge anything. And that's basically coming from when I made this feature, I selected every face on it. If I could come into here and edit definition, make this my step over. We'll just do a 0.01 step over. Basically paint that toolpath on there. Still, it's going to maintain that shape of the toolpath, but it's going to follow that surface throughout. And then we can come in and simulate that also. What I showed you on the 2D is called tool mode. We also can do what's called turbo mode in our simulation. I'm going to tell it to stop at every tool path. Hit play. There's my roughing tool path simulation. There's my finisher. And here comes the last one. You can even see the difference between the step overs in that one. Again, I hit show differences. I can see what I have left to do. See if I'm missing anything. Definitely not gouging anything. That looks good. If I wanted to, I could hit extract machinable features. And now we're going to bring in some 2-axis milling with the 3-axis. So it found that oblong pocket group, the 4 holes, put them together as a group also. And it also found this hole down here in the bottom, which I'm always impressed with CAMWorks because the top of this hole is not flat. But it still sees that it can be cut from this side. You can always come in now and add these tool paths. Generate tool path. We've got everything we need on this 3D part. So that's CAMWorks 2D milling, some assembly machining, and some 3-axis milling. So now we can look at some multi-axis milling. So here is another assembly, just a 5th-axis vise, and a pretty interesting little model. But this one was created using 5-axis CAMWorks. CAMWorks uses ModuleWorks for their 5-axis kernel, the #1 5-axis kernel that anybody has out there. So that's very strong. The beauty of ours is it's being used with SolidWorks, because you're going to use a little bit more CAD strength to get 5-axis tool paths a lot of times. But basically what I've done in this one is you create the feature. I'm telling it to machine. In this case, I just want to do a swarf cut down this flat all the way around. So I've picked that face and I've told it to do a swarf. We go inside this tool path. You can look at my parameters. Here's my tool. Here's my pattern. We've got a specific method for just swarf milling. They came out with that about 4 years ago. You've got your milling method. There's 5-axis drilling that CAMWorks can do. And the milling is basically all of my patterns that ModuleWorks has. But the swarfing is specifically made to do that side cutting on a very organic model. So I've got my tool paths here, and now I'm going to show you the other 2 simulations that CAMWorks has. So the one you've seen already. So I've got my STL model for my stock, and I've got my models for my fixtures. And this is going to show simulation, and it's very useful. It's going to tell me if there's any gouging with the tool, the non-cutting portion of the tool, even the tool holder, even though I'm not showing it. It'll tell me and stop my simulation if I gouge this. I don't like to show it too often, but this one does work very nice. Another one that I use, especially in 5-axis, is called step through. This one is not pretty, doesn't show the stock, but it's going to show me every move this tool is doing. From the lead in, it's giving me my X, Y, and Z moves down here. It's telling me if these are linear moves, rapid moves. But I will use this one quite a bit also. This is the step-through toolpath. And then the last one, which is very important for people who are doing multi-turreted mill turns, definitely full 5-axis simultaneous, is called Machine Simulator. So that one we have two versions of that. We've got a centerline version of that, and we also have a full-on G-code machine simulation in CAMWorks. I'm going to right-click on this toolpath, and I'm going to say I want to use G-code simulation. So it's going to ask me to post it first. Very important. Can't run G-code simulation without having the G-code first. And I'm going to hit the green checkbox, and it is now for the first time going to leave SolidWorks. It's going to open up what's called Eureka. That's our machine simulating software. And now I'm going to see every portion of this machine. And it's going to run the gouge detection off of everything on this machine, even the small nozzles, the coolant nozzles. If they're hitting my part, it's going to tell me it's been hit. So you can see on the left-hand side, I've got my G-code. CAMWorks automatically brought in all the tooling, which is very important with this software. It brought in the stock, it brought in my fixtures, placed it on my machine, and I can run this simulation. I'm going to turn off my toolpath mode. But this one is going to go through each individual G-code and show me the simulation. We can speed that up a little, but this is pretty important to make sure when you've got this very expensive machine running that you're not crashing something you don't want to be. All right, now I'm throwing a lot of different modules at you. I never talk money, but Joe does definitely. He'll be able to help you on that later on, but this is just giving you a little taste of everything that CAMWorks has. And this one is kind of the wow factor. So whatever machine you have, we can create that machine and make sure that you've got the exact machine and simulation going on.
So I think for time's sake, we're going to turn it back over to Sherry and see if we have any questions that we can answer. As we did mention, we do certainly do full mill turn capability as well. That would be a much longer demo. Maybe she'll have us back to do just multi-axis and mill turn for the future.
Actually, let me ask Christian if there are questions.
Thanks, Sherry. Yes, actually, we do have a couple questions that are coming in. And for those of you listening, if you do have questions, please feel free to type those into our question or the chat box. Either one is fine. Our first question here, do you need a license of SolidWorks to run CAMWorks?
No, you don't. That's a great question. When CAMWorks was created many, many years ago, it did not have any CAD capability. So it strictly ran inside of SolidWorks. And as the partnership grew, SolidWorks provided a version of its package called CAMWorks Solids, which we renamed. So no, you don't need a seat of SolidWorks. We can provide you a version of SolidWorks for the machining environment.
Good question.
Thank you. This next question comes from one of our attendees. They're actually unable to attend any live trainings or travel for training. So is there anything that's available online as far as training goes for the software?
Great question. When you purchase the software, you get something called Solid Professor. So it is a 4-hour online. You don't have to have the software loaded. You can use it as you travel. You can use it at home if you're doing that at home. And you're able to go through step-by-step different tutorials. And that comes free with the software for both CAD and CAM. Currently, with the environment that we're in, we're offering free web training for those that are purchasing the software, so we can do one-on-one specific sessions for you as needed. So if it's just a milling, then we can do maybe a 3-hour or a 4-hour session. If it's an 8-hour session, we can break it up over 2 days. So we absolutely have the ability to do web training. And then lastly, what comes with the software also are your own tutorials that you can actually go through, and there's a full manual. Also, anywhere you're at in the software, there's help topics and there's help areas in the software as well that you can click on right in the middle of a toolpath, for that matter, where you can just click the help area and it'll take you right to that specific spot.
Yep. Plus, when this whole environment is done with, we here at Access, we're right in Orlando. We've got a 6-person classroom that we have class once a month, and it's a 4-day class. And we go through everything. Hopefully, we'll get back to doing that pretty soon.
Yep.
We also have a mobile class that we go right on site and train. It's been a while, but another good question.
Are there specific types of CNC machines that will work with this program?
Absolutely. CAMWorks will run your basic 2.5 or 2-axis mills, full 3-axis milling machines, machining centers, vertical, horizontal. It will run 4- and 5-axis indexing and positioning. It'll also run full simultaneous 4th and 5th axis if you're cutting impeller blades, or aerospace does a lot of 5-axis simultaneous. We also can program mill turns, dual spindle and dual turns for those that are familiar with multi-axis mill turns. We also can program burning tables and plasma tables as well. In addition to CNC routers, if you're in the furniture or woodworking industry, we have a module called CAMWorks that allows you to run nesting automatically right from within SolidWorks, and then you can take that out to your laser or your router machine as well. And then lastly, we can also program wire EDM and even some robots up to 5-axis.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions from our attendees? Please go ahead and send those in. I'll give it just a few more minutes.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, we would like to thank Joe and Dennis for their time today, for their many years of experience in the manufacturing arena. We'd also like to once again thank Florida Makes for their continued support of Florida manufacturers. We'd like to thank you for your participation in today's webinar. And if you would like more information about MACF, please check out our website at www.macf.biz. Please check for future events and visit our website. And as you exit the webinar, we are seeking your feedback on how to improve these webinars, or if you have ideas on topics, we value you and would like to give you webinars that you're looking for. So please watch for these upcoming webinars through MACF and Florida Makes. And at this time, I bid you a good day, stay well, and keep manufacturing. Okay, Joe and Dennis, I'm going to say goodbye.